The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Oh, we were smote. Everything's frozen. Well, look, we were, like I said, we were smote. We were doing something fun. Traven said he had a surprise for me. And there we were with our zebras. I don't know if you guys remember, I love me some John Oliver, his show This Week Tonight. And a lot of times he will do something on his show at the end of his show that's very funny. What I wouldn't do for his budget, right? For us to do the kinds of things that he does on his show here on our show. But a while back, he did a whole thing about a piece about zebras protesting peacefully. I want to say, I don't think it was Brazil. It was someplace in South America. In any case, he challenged everybody to he gave zebra footage out and said, please use it in whatever way you can. And we used it for like that week on Autism Live. It was, I don't know, maybe 2-3 years ago. And Traven came across it and said, what is this? And I said, you know, it's a kind of cute thing and you can use it. My tail's showing. You can use it if you want to. So look what he did with that. Isn't that clever? In any case, it froze everything. So that's why we had that little hiccup at the beginning. We were smote because we were being cute. I'm Shannon Penrod, and we're coming to you live from the Warner Center in Woodland Hills, California. This is Autism Live. We are in the Warner Center, which is the home for Autism Live. It is also the home for the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. We're so thrilled to be here with you on this Thursday morning. We got a big show for you. And I just want to say we got a big show tomorrow too, so it's all good. We got a lot of things that we're going to cover, but everything that we're going to do, we hope to be interactive. We want you to participate with us. We want to hear from you. We want to know your thoughts, your feelings, your questions, your concerns. We have some experts on the show. I always like to say that, you know, we have tons of experts. I'm not one of them. We'll get into that in a minute. But first I want to remind you that, and Traven has already started to show you, that there are lots of different ways that you can get in touch with us here. Lots of different ways that you can participate in the show. Lots of different ways that you can have your thoughts, feelings, questions, and concerns added into the show, because this really is a show for all of us. You know what I say always is that we can get through this together if we hold hands, and si se puede, right? Okay, so I do want to remind you, while he's showing you the different ways that you can participate, that our homepage is autism-live.com. When you go there, there's lots of things to do, lots of ways to explore the videos that we've been doing over the last 8 years to get information that you might find useful. You know, our whole job here is to give information and inspiration, because you definitely need both, right? And I want to remind you that our community that we're trying to reach out to is the autism community. Now, that's a big, wide spectrum of community. That's individuals who are on the spectrum, it's their parents, their caregivers, the people who are therapists working with them in lots of different capacities, whether they're ABA therapists, OTs, speech and language pathologists, and the list goes on, right? But it also extends to the greater family and the individuals who love those individuals on the spectrum. So everybody's welcome. Everybody's welcome because everybody has a piece in this pie. We are not all going to agree on everything. That's okay because it is a big spectrum and it's not a one-size-fits-all. I'm going to sneeze. But the important thing, the thing that we all have in common through the whole thing is that we all care deeply about somebody on the autism spectrum, even if it's ourselves. Yep, sneeze. I hate sneezing into the mic for Traven. Excuse me. I said when we were starting the show today, I think I'm coming down with a summer cold. It's not fun. But in any case, we all have in common that we love someone on the spectrum, and we all have in common that we want for those individuals to have the ability to access all the things that they need, whether that is just the support that they need or skill building because they want to learn something new, so that they can live their lives purposefully and with dignity like anybody else. Come on now. Can't we all agree on that? That's a good thing. That's a starting point for all of us. So on the show today, we're going to be doing a lot of different things, but we like to start, well, I did want to say, back it up here. See, it's the cold talking, the precursor to the cold. I mentioned that we have experts that are coming on the show today and that I'm not one of them. I am a very proud mother of an individual who was diagnosed with autism when he was 2.5. We got access to the very best of services because I'm really lucky, and when we got lucky, we worked really hard. And you know, the two things together, and I'm not kidding myself that it's not both of them. Sometimes I say to people, you know, we were just really lucky, and they go, you know, you're kind of shortchanging you and your kid and all the work that everybody did. Yeah, no, we worked hard, but we also got very lucky, and I'm very, very aware of that. And it's part of the reason why I'm here, because I can't get that lucky and not make sure that other people have the opportunity to get access to information and inspiration. So that's sort of the mission that I'm on. But I'm not an expert. We have to be very, very clear about that. I will care passionately about the things that you want to talk about. I have an opinion, and I like to say I have an informed opinion. I've been covering autism in a journalistic way now for over 10 years. So I've interviewed a lot of experts, and I have an informed opinion, but I'm not an expert. We do have experts on the show for you, and that's a really cool thing. But we're going to start off with something that we fondly refer to as the jargon of the day. This is when we take on one word, one phrase, one acronym, and we try to shed a little light on what are these experts talking about when they use this term. We will give you the actual definition. Often I like to make fun of that because that's really all that you can do with the actual definition is make fun of it, right? And then we give you a working definition, which sometimes is almost as bad as the other definition, but we try to give you sort of the Reader's Digest version of it and put it into context so you get a beginning understanding. Not necessarily a PhD in it, but a beginning understanding so that it can save you time and money. That's really what it's about, right? So today's jargon term, as you can see on the screen, is chaining. What I love about autism jargon is that sometimes they just sound like made-up words, and other times it sounds like something that really you probably would use in your life. But doesn't this make you think like it's a jewelry technique? That's what comes over. Chaining. Oh, are we going to make jewelry? I picture us like weaving together daisies to make a daisy chain. Okay, not what we're talking about in the field of autism, and particularly the field of ABA. So let's take a look at our actual definition. And let me just tell you, I had two different choices, and I could have given you the one that was really, really convoluted, and I was like, enough. Okay, chaining is the combining of simple component behaviors into a more complex composite behavior. Okay, so that's almost accessible, right? But let's take a look at our working definition for chaining. It's separating a skill into small teachable skills that can be taught individually so they can eventually be taught together. All right. So, and then there's this whole thing about, are you doing forward chaining? Are you doing backward chaining? You will hear your experts talk about this because when we're building a skill, let's say you identify that you want for your child to be able to brush their teeth, right? Brushing your teeth is a skill, but the truth of the matter is that brushing your teeth is about like 23 different skills. And in order to do it really successfully on your own, just brushing your teeth, I'm not talking about remembering to brush your teeth because that's a whole other set of skills, right? But just the act of brushing your teeth, first thing that experts do is they create a task analysis. And they will go through, okay, so step 1, you do this, step 2, you do this. And people brush their teeth with different, are you somebody who takes the tube off the toothpaste first? Hopefully you do that. Some people turn on the water first. That can be a waste of water, right? But I'm saying that there's room for variation and people do things in different steps. But the first thing that a behaviorist would do, or an OT, either one in this case, would do a task analysis. I remember when I first got out of graduate school and moved to Los Angeles, one of my roommates was studying to be an OT. And so there were 3 of us living in this apartment, and at least once a week, she would take one of the other 2 of us and she would say, can you do me a favor? I need you to do X, Y, or Z in slow motion. Like one Saturday afternoon, she asked me to get into the refrigerator and get out an orange. And I had to do it 100 times, and I had to do it in slow motion so that she could do the task analysis on it. That first, I needed to, reach for the handle of the refrigerator. And we discovered that if you stand there and don't do anything and don't pivot your body, then you're going to hit yourself with the refrigerator door. Never thought about that before. But in any case, I remember the day that she made me do the brushing my teeth 1,000 times in slow motion so she could do a task analysis on it. So we do the task analysis on it, and then we decide where would we like to start to teach this skill. Because if we just throw a 23 step process at a 3-year-old with autism and go, brush your teeth, which is what a lot of us do, right? Because it just seems like that would be the successful thing. And then we go, why isn't this working? Because there's too many steps to it. So with chaining, what we would do is just try to teach the child one thing. It might be that we teach them just to twist the cap. And we show them how to do it, and we have them twist the cap, and when they twist, and we're not even talking about taking it off, we're just talking about twisting it to get it open. And that's a teaching, you don't go this way, you go that way with it, right? We teach that to the child, we model it, we show it to them, we have them practice, then we put it back on, we have them practice again, we put it back on, and yay, you can do it, right? And a reward of some sort that's meaningful to them. So we've taught just that one little sliver of the skill. Now, the next time, once they've got it and they can do it with different people at different times, right? Because we want to make sure that they really have it. Now we're going to add. So think of it as like a train, and every single part of the task is a different car, and you just want to build your train. Now you can build the train from the back, you can build the train from the front, you can build the train from the middle out, you can do whatever you want. But the point is, when we're chaining, we're not throwing a bunch at somebody all at once. We're just having them do the one thing, we're rewarding them for it. Then when they can do that, we add the next thing. So maybe, we've taught the turning, now the next thing is to take it off and set the cap someplace where we can find it later on, right? So now we're going to teach that. Now put it over here. Yay! Great. Then the next day, we teach maybe the squeezing the tube. And the day after that, we teach squeezing the tube on to the toothbrush. And the next day, we get into actually starting to brush the teeth. But even that we can separate out, right? So why do we do this? Because it's a really easy way to teach something that's complex. And it's so successful. So if you're someplace and they're talking to you or your child and you say, okay, well, the ideal way to teach this is we're going to do forward chaining. That means they're going to teach the first task on the list of, the first item on the task analysis, and then they're going to add and they're going to go from the front to the back. Backward chaining, we're going to do the whole thing for them. Maybe we're going to do, we're going to brush their teeth for them. And the last thing in the task analysis is washing their hands, or I don't know. In their task analysis, maybe it's spitting and putting the toothbrush back. I don't know. But you see what I'm saying. So chaining is a great way to teach a skill. Really, really wonderful, because the person feels like they're making progress. It does take time, and I think that's the hardest part for parents, is that it's like, wow, if I had to do that with everything, we will be here the rest of our lives. I want to remind you of a couple of things. First of all, I know it seems that way, but it isn't that way. If you take 6 months, and I don't think most people take 6 months, but if you did, if you took 6 months to teach the chaining of brushing your teeth, it would still be a good investment in time, because then they have that skill for the rest of their lives. And what were you doing those 6 months anyway, right? It takes like a minute and a half in the morning and at night to do the one little part of the task, and they needed to brush their teeth anyway. And in 6 months, they'll be able to do it independently for the rest of their lives and do it well. It's time well spent, even if it takes 6 months. And I don't think most chaining skills don't take 6 months. Okay, so that's chaining. Now you know, and it doesn't have anything to do with jewelry or daisies. There we go. Okay, moving on. We always have a question of the day. And our question for you today, taking a drink, what are you good at? And you know what? There's like a secondary question to this. Not only what are you good at, but why do you think that is? Did you just spontaneously become good at it and you've never had to work at it and you're just brilliant at it? Or did you have an affinity for it, and then because you had an affinity for it and you saw that people responded, then did you get better at it? Did you work at it because you saw that people rewarded you? What are you good at, and why are you good at it? So, you know, I have a couple of things that I'm good at, but I can talk you under the table, right? I can talk and talk and talk. Now, why am I good at talking? I think partially because I inherited it. They always tell the story in my family about how when my dad went to first grade, they didn't have kindergarten, but he went to first grade, and they were going around the class and they were asking everybody what their parents did for a living. And my dad's father had passed away when he was 3.5, 4 years old, so he barely remembered him. And it was this embarrassment thing of that there he was, and everybody else was saying, well, you know, my dad's the milkman, and he knew it was coming to him, and he wasn't going to be able to say anything about his dad. And it was a time when most women didn't work, right? And his mom was, you know, on a very tight pension from, you know, her husband's death. So they were really, really, really not wealthy. Let's say that. I would put them in the poor category. When my dad went to first grade, he went with no shoes. This is what we're talking about, right? And so it got to him, though, and they said, you know, so what do your parents do? And he said, very proudly, he stood up and he said, my mother is Frida Penrod, the great talker. Because apparently Frida Penrod could talk you under the table. And so from the time I was a child, everybody was like, oh, you are your grandmother's daughter. But I also think, too, that I learned, even as a child, that if I could tell a story about something, that people were interested. And that was exciting to me, to be able to make people laugh, or to get people I always wanted to be a teacher and was a teacher, and I was excited if you could tell somebody a story and have them learn from it. That makes me happy. So I went to school to learn how to speak more proficiently. I'm not saying that worked out, but I went to school for a lot of years, have a master's degree, in fact. So, you know, what are you good at, and why are you good at it, and have you worked on it, or did it come naturally? And the whole point here is that for most of us, there was something that we were interested in, and we started doing it, and there was a part of it that was reinforcing to us in some way. And so we were willing to invest more time in it, and so we got better and better at it. And what ABA seeks to do is to make sure that there is a reinforcer for all the things that you're working on, so that you will want to work on them. And even when the thing that you're doing is in and of itself not reinforcing, and sometimes so hard, if there is a reinforcer for it, think about Olympic athletes and how hard they work and how much pain they must be in sometimes. But the reinforcer is so big that they continue to work. And that's what we want to make possible for everyone, is that if there's something that you want to work on, and it doesn't matter whether you're a person on the spectrum or not, because I say, you know, we definitely want to do that for the person on the spectrum, but for parents, my goodness, the interventions that you have to do to be able to help your child are sometimes so overwhelmingly hard that who would do it if there wasn't a reinforcer? So what are you good at? Did you get reinforcement? Can we apply that to other things? That's really what we're talking about. So that's our question for the day. Write in and tell us. You can write us on Facebook. I'd love to know, what are you good at? And then we have our continuing topic for this week is knowing the difference. Remember that we talked about on Monday the serenity prayer, which is grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And I don't know about you, but I have found in my life that this is where the rub is like knowing, okay, what do I have control over? What do I not have control over? The truth of the matter is, if you want to get good at anything, there's a whole lot of control that you have over it. There was a show that was on a few years ago where the guy who's the host of The Amazing Race, he did this experiment, if you will, where he would go to people and say, what's your dream? I'm going to give you $2,000 and I'm going to give you access to some contacts, but you have to pursue them, and we have to see, can you make your dream happen for $2,000? And a lot of people were like, $2,000? What can you do for $2,000? But the truth is that what those people were able to accomplish for $2,000 and some contacts. There's this thing called the internet, though, and if you want contacts, pretty much anybody can find that. So I subscribe to this theory. What do you want? What progress are you going for? Is it something that you can make a difference? The courage to change the things you can. Now, there are some things that you can't change and that you just have to go, okay, I got to sit with this. This part of this, this is where I am. But what part of it can I work on and then get busy on it? I don't even think, in some cases, it's not the $2,000. It's taking the action, right? Okay, so in any case, those are our starters for today. But the folks that we're having on the show today, in just a second, we have Krystle, Pulido, and I'm sure I'm saying her name wrong. She's our autism expert that's going to be answering questions that you guys have written in. And then we have Valerie Baadh Garrett, who is the manager of the TAP program. We think that we are going to have one of the TAP team members for you joining us via Skype. We're still waiting to hear if that is a go for that. And these are, the TAP program is at Meristem. So we're going to have them explain what that is, but it's a really cutting edge program, working on a lot of different life skills. I know a lot of you guys write and ask for things for older kids on the spectrum. You're really going to be very interested in this program that they are doing. So all of that's coming up, but first we're going to take a break, and then we're going to be back with Krystle, who's your autism expert for the day. Stick with us.
Do you provide care services to someone with autism? Recently, more and more children are being diagnosed with the condition and getting the support they need as awareness grows. But what happens to these children as they grow up? It's estimated that over 500,000 youth with autism will turn 18 in the next decade, and they'll be faced with a very difficult reality. As children with autism grow up, their services start to disappear or become very difficult to access. Things like medical care, mental health counseling, vocational training, and more. All services that are still desperately needed. The loss of support that youth with autism face as they grow up is so severe that it's referred to in the autism community as falling off a cliff. Adults with autism need the same level of support they had as children to avoid falling off the services cliff. Introducing Skills Living, the web-based software designed specifically to help transitioning youth and adults with autism so they can avoid the cliff and instead fly to success. With Skills Living, help your learner with autism develop the skills they need in all the critical areas of adult life, including self-control, planning, and problem-solving, effective communication, performing life skill tasks for independent living, acquiring and maintaining employment or other meaningful activities, developing and maintaining social skills and relationships, accessing transportation and public services, and being safe. Skills Living includes a comprehensive assessment, a data collection mobile app, behavior intervention plan builder, and automatic progress reporting. It also provides a complete curriculum addressing 16 key areas, spanning the entire range of functioning adulthood. Skills Living is easy to use and can be implemented by schools, parents, and autism service providers. Call or click today for your free demo and see how Skills Living can help your learner with autism avoid the cliff and instead reach their fullest potential. Skills Living. Wish, learn, become.
This is Logan Shepherd. At first glance, he looks like a typical American teenager. He plays in a band, loves hanging out with his friends, he doesn't like doing homework, and he's not really fond of broccoli. But Logan Shepherd is not your typical 14-year-old. Logan was diagnosed with autism at the age of 2. He was nonverbal, made no eye contact, and his parents were told to abandon all hope. Instead, his parents began an intensive intervention treatment. At its center was a quality ABA program known as the CARD method. This is Logan Shepherd now.
All I really want to say is, I'm kind of copying Martin Luther King. I kind of have a dream, that one day, I can just, inspire people and never give up. Because, that's what I want to do in life. Because if I can succeed, they can succeed. And I will succeed.
To follow Logan's musical journey, visit www.facebook.com/officialdrummerrock or @drummerrock on Instagram. For more information on the CARD method, visit www.centerforautism.com or call 800-345-CARD. Rock on, Logan.
Welcome back to Autism Live. Joining us right now via the telephone, so you're gonna be able to look at a picture of her, but we've got her on the telephone, is Krystle Pulido. And she is the clinical manager designee from San Dimas for our CARD office, Center for Autism and Related Disorders in San Dimas. So Krystle, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
We're seeing your beautiful picture there. And Krystle, explain for the folks at home if they don't know what a clinical manager designee is. What do you do for CARD?
So I was previously a clinical supervisor for CARD, so I have my own caseload, and I was overseeing cases, training therapists and assistant supervisors and things like that. Now that I'm the clinical manager designee, now I'm overseeing the office in general, clinically. So we don't quite have another BCBA here yet, but once we do, then I'll be overseeing the BCBA who will be taking on the majority of the cases, because then I need to kind of also oversee some of the office metrics and making sure that we're providing all the hours that we should be for our kids and things like that. So I take on more of a clinical and admin role as a clinical manager designee rather than just a pure clinical role as I was as a clinical supervisor.
Yeah, it's one of the things, sometimes we get the opportunity on the show to talk about some of the really fabulous things at CARD, but I think this is one of the really fabulous things at CARD, that not only do you have your supervisor, who is the person who's designing your program, but that person has oversight, and that person has oversight, and that person has oversight. So you have a lot of experts on your case, which is a really wonderful thing.
Yes.
But today, Krystle is our expert, and she's answering questions that you guys have written into us online. So Krystle, the first question for you, which is a really interesting one, is autism a disorder that progressively worsens? For instance, if diagnosed as being mid-range, can it progress to severe or improve to mild?
So I think the first thing we want to remember about autism is that it's a developmental disorder. So there's specific milestones that are usually met at specific ages, anywhere from infants to toddlers as we get older. And so really what we want to look at is that gap between where the child who has autism skills are versus say, a peer of their same age who's typically developing. So depending on how large that gap is, that gap can get bigger as they get older, or it can get smaller as we provide treatment. So that's part of the big reason why that early and that intensive treatment is so important at such a young age, because the gap is so much smaller at that age. As you get older, there's going to be more skills, more things that get more abstract, so that gap can get bigger without treatment.
Which might appear to be worsening, but technically that isn't. It's just that you're getting further and further behind in your skill set. But on the other part of that question, it sounds like to me, can it progress to severe or improve to mild? Asking, if you are someone who has a deficit, can that be improved upon?
Yes, definitely. Yeah, I mean, with ABA, we see it all the time. Especially at CARD, we've had kids who have lost their diagnosis because we've given, the treatment intensively enough and consistently enough that, they've learned those skills, whether it's those social skills or those executive functioning skills or those cognition skills that, can be really difficult to learn. They were able to learn it through all that practice and through all that therapy, that gap has disappeared, and that they're reacting to social issues and social problems and things like that the same exact way that their peers would be. So that gap just can disappear, and it can get smaller. And then again, like I said, without treatment, it can get bigger because life just gets harder as we get older, no matter how you look at it.
Absolutely. And keep in mind, you guys, I mean, when I think about 10 years ago when insurance was not paying for ABA, and that insurance in almost every state here in the United States now does pay, has a mandate that insurance must pay for ABA treatment for autism. That has only come about because ABA is effective. Otherwise, that was the thing that insurance kept standing on. We don't have to pay for ABA because there is no effective treatment for autism. And when there were hundreds of studies that showed that ABA was effective at improving autism symptoms across a wide range of kids, then insurance had to start paying for it. So keep that in mind when you guys are thinking about especially early intervention. So thank you for that, Krystle. Next question. Hello, ladies. I'm an aide in a severely disabled elementary classroom. We have a new student that plays with his feces. Can you please recommend some strategies I can try? I read about having him play with Play-Doh, but he will eat it along with other toys in the classroom. He puts a lot of things in his mouth, and he is 10 years old. And this is one of those things that everybody goes, oh, right? Because A, it's so unpleasant, right? It's unpleasant to all of us. But B, there's a safety issue to somebody, getting their feces on their hand, putting it on the walls. There's no part of this that anybody likes. So, Krystle, what do you have for this wonderful aid?
Well, I think as maybe sort of like a temporary solution as we try to kind of figure out the root of the problem is maybe, having him wear like a belt, so it's harder for him, there's more time to stop him before he can kind of reach into his pants, if that's kind of what he's doing. I don't know if he's doing it like in the classroom or only in the bathroom or whatever it may be. But I think really what we need to do is get to what we call like the function of the behavior, like the reason that it's happening. Does he like the way it feels? Does he like the way it smells? Is it because when he's got it in his, I'm assuming he might be wearing a diaper, when he has it in there, is it uncomfortable, and then that's why he's trying to reach in and take it out because he doesn't like the way it feels. So there could be, a variety of reasons that it's happening. What we need to look at is the reason why it's happening so that we can put in an intervention and a replacement behavior for the reason that it's happening, so that we can get that behavior to stop happening and get him to start doing the more appropriate replacement behavior instead. So it's probably going to take like a functional behavior assessment to figure out what's going on. And then in terms of like the mouthing and, having him play with other toys, that one is just going to need, monitoring until he learns how to play with those toys appropriately. And I know he's 10 years old, but, maybe we can start with a chew, so he has a chew in his mouth while he's playing with the toy, and kind of fade out the chew as he learns to play with the toys more appropriately and can kind of inhibit putting it in his mouth. and things like that.
Yeah, I know a lot of people who are not in love with the whole idea of the chew, but I think if somebody is doing it well, it can be so effective because, as you were saying, we need to know what the function of the behavior is. You can't just assume. But for some kids, they have that need, that compulsion to have something in their mouth, something to chew, and it can be for lots of different reasons why. But there are some really good companies that make hospital grade, really cool necklaces. I think we've featured them. In fact, we featured one that was in our toy guide for last year that I love. And one of the things that I look for as an ex-educator and as a parent with those chews is that it's hospital grade, that it's not something that's going to fall apart and that they're going to end up eating, and that it's somehow cool, so the other kids aren't making fun of them. Like they have them, they look like Lego bricks. My son for a brief period of time needed one, and it looked like a yin and yang symbol, and everybody thought it was so cool. But the really key thing is to have the necklace part of it be breakaway, so that if somebody pulls on it, that it immediately snaps off, and that it can't be something that they can be choked with. That's like the single biggest important thing about those for me. And honestly, if somebody is fading it properly, they can be used for a period of time to get you through something, and then be faded out. I don't know a single person who is 21 years old and still has a Chewy. So, but I know parents worry about it. Like, I don't want him to go to college with a Chewy. That doesn't happen. Okay, so thank you, Krystle. And the last one, my 5-year-old son has recently started acting up in his preschool. He was diagnosed at 3 and has only gotten support through our intermediate unit. We are trying to get ABA, but it has been a challenge. So I'm on skills, doing what I can through there. We are in Pennsylvania and keeping told there are plenty of forms of treatment for autism. My son has become very angry. He has hit his teacher multiple times, and when he wants, he stands up and yells at her in her face. He is becoming very disruptive, and we just don't know why. He is verbal and reads, but I wonder if he really understands what we are saying to him as we try to correct his behavior. Help! With 2 exclamation points. We've tried rewarding good behavior and encouraging when he is being a good boy, but it's not working. And he just keeps getting worse every day. Okay, this is somebody who needs an expert, Krystle.
Yeah, so that's a little bit of a tough one, just because I don't have a lot of information. It's really unfortunate that they've been trying to get ABA and haven't been successful, because it sounds like, ABA would definitely be able to get to the root of the problem here. Yeah. Since she's on skills, there is a really cool, great thing that we have on skills called the Card Indirect Functional Assessment. I don't know if she's looked at that to try to figure out the potential function of the behaviors that he's engaging in, or maybe even trying to have the teacher fill it out. It's like 35 questions that kind of ask, like, does he do this in this situation, or does he do this to get, to do this? And you kind of score it on a strongly agree, disagree, strongly disagree kind of scale. And once you finish answering all those questions, it kind of gives you a graph of what the potential functions of the behavior may be. So I think until she can get ABA and get like a BCBA on board and really, looking at his behaviors to try to figure out what's going on, that might be a really cool tool for her to go on skills to kind of get an idea of what's happening. Maybe it's the change in environment. I've seen this with other kids before. I don't know how long he's been in school, if he just started preschool or if he's been in preschool, but I've seen other kids where they've gone from like a 40-hour-a-week home program, got him school ready, went into kindergarten, and all of a sudden they're having toileting accidents when they've been potty trained for 2 years. And, sometimes it's that loss of control because it's such a big change from, being used to being at home to all of a sudden being at school all day. And they don't know, they have that difficulty to communicate that they're feeling anxious, that they're not liking this new change in their routine and things like that. So again, it's one of those things where we really need to get to the root of the behavior, the function, the reason that it's happening, so that we can maybe teach him, maybe the classroom's too loud, maybe it's too cold, you know, he's feeling uncomfortable. There's so many different reasons that he could be engaging in these behaviors, and we really just need to figure out what's going on and why, so that we can teach him the skills that he needs so that he can get his needs met when he's in those types of situations.
Yeah, I'm really concerned about the one sentence in here that says we are in Pennsylvania and keep being told that there are plenty of forms of treatment for autism. Like, I kind of want to know what mom means by that. Because the thing about this question that really strikes me is that I want you to have ABA at home. I absolutely want that for you. That's going to be the best thing for this child who's 5 years old. And then you can be working on things at home to go into the classroom. But the behavior is happening in the classroom. And the school has a responsibility to provide you with what you need, because I'm assuming that he has an IEP. If he doesn't, I would get an IEP. I would request one and tell them that you have the diagnosis and that they have a legal responsibility to give you the IEP. And then with the IEP, it gives him the right to whatever he needs to make it possible for him to be successful in the classroom. So you may not have a BCBA because you don't have ABA yet, but the school should have one. And if they don't have one, if you request one in writing and say, I would like you to do an FBA, a functional behavior assessment on my child's behavior, and I would like for it to be done by a BCBA, a board certified behavior analyst, put it in writing, they legally need to provide that for you. And we can talk more about that with our legal support when Bonnie comes back next week. But you know, I love what Krystle is saying to you, that there's a reason why he's engaging in this behavior, and an expert needs to look at it to figure out why. You absolutely can have the teacher, or you look at what they call the CIFA on skills. And for those of you who are wondering about that, it's in the challenge. What is it called? The Behavior Intervention Builder. I think that's what it's called. That portion of skills, and you'll find it the CIFA, and it's those questions that you can take that Krystle was talking about. But they really have to provide you, because it's happening in the classroom, with an expert to do that as well. But that's a tough little road, and you might need some support along the way. So please feel free to write back as you start to deal with this. And we can even, if you need help, having the lawyer, Bonnie Yates, who comes on the show on a weekly basis, talk to you about how you get that process started. I just don't know where you are. As Krystle was saying, we don't have enough information about where you are and what's happening. Like, I would want to know, do you have an IEP? But anything else that you wanted to add to that, Krystle?
No, I completely agree. I mean, I think if she's, you know, in the position right now where she can't get ABA, then yeah, the school should be helping. I don't know if there's, here in California, we have the regional center that can provide like some parent training and consultation. I don't know, I'm not familiar with Pennsylvania, so I don't know what the other resources are that could be, you know, that the family could maybe look into to get some more support and some more help for their son.
Well, Pennsylvania now has a mandate, so you will be seeing ABA companies springing up. If you're on a waiting list in Pennsylvania, there'll be more coming. But we were saying yesterday that when you're trying to get in with an ABA company and you get on their waiting list, call, be as nice as you can, but call pretty much on a daily basis and say, hi, it's me calling again. How are we doing? Is there anything I can be doing to move up on the waiting list? Be persistent. Let them know that, but be positive. Don't be rude or mean. Let them know that you're a parent who's really going to take advantage of this treatment, and they'll notice. They will definitely notice. But Krystle, you're in San Dimas, and so we're really grateful for the people in San Dimas who get an opportunity to work with you. And I know that you're doing amazing work there. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us and answer these questions.
Oh, thank you for having me.
And say hi to everybody in San Dimas for us.
I will. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Well, wasn't she lovely? We didn't get to see her in person, but beautiful, beautiful picture and wonderful, wonderful expert. Okay, so we are going to take a break, and then when we come back, I have all my paperwork everywhere. except I don't. We're going to be joined, and she's already here, Valerie Baadh Garrett from the TAP program. She's the TAP program director at Meristem, is going to be joining us, and we think that we're having one of her students join us as well via Skype. So stay tuned for that. We'll be back after these messages. Parent to parent, you might be asking yourself, why does my child stim? Well, first of all, let's talk about what stimming is. Stimming is a slang term for self-stimulatory behavior, which is kind of a misnomer anyway, because a lot of the times when our children engage in these kinds of behaviors, they're not to stimulate themselves. Sometimes they're to soothe themselves. So first of all, we want to get rid of the notion that it's to stimulate themselves. But they do these behaviors because there's something about it that feels good. And that's the main thing that we need to know as parents. It's not some random behavior. There's something about it that's giving the child a paycheck. And once we get an idea of what that might be, we need to find a behavior that can take that behavior's place and start to reinforce that. We want to pick something that's more socially acceptable. So if, for instance, the child is doing a lot of hand flapping because they like seeing their blurred fingers, then we can find something else for them to focus on, maybe a toy that does blurred colors, so for a period of time they'll focus on that. The main thing to remember, though, is that there is a reason for these behaviors. There's something about it that feels good to the child. And once we know that, we can begin to change it. There's a phrase that's being used in the autism community called stimming.
Hard times lead to good choices. Many times you're going to find out that change is coming and it's not something that you like to see. Things sometimes just don't work. Sometimes you have to put your child in a new school. Sometimes you have to put them in a different classroom. Often you'll see this with perhaps special education versus regular education, or everyone's favorite, puberty. All bets are off then. However, these things happen when they need to happen. So making that hard choice is super, super scary. But when you open those doors to look at things that maybe you've never dreamed you would have to look at, you're going to find help that you never expected. There are a lot of people out there dealing with the same things that you are dealing with, and there is a level of help that you never even knew existed. So don't be afraid when it's time to look at the scary problems that you're having. When those things come up, when the aggression increases, when things are falling apart at home, when you're getting the calls from the schools, don't be afraid. Reach out. Find out what you need to do. You might need to look at new schools, new housing. You might need to access new levels of service. But I am telling you, you're going to see amazing things. There are children that, as they grow, do things with the help of others, very specialized support, that you never thought they could do. So once you do that and you meet the child where he or she is and you give them what they need, everybody can do better, and you're going to see amazing progress.
Hello, fellow activists. Last week, we talked about the first step to empowerment. Accept and embrace this challenge. Sometimes you have people that support you in your denial. Maybe it's your husband, maybe it's your mother. When I expressed my concern to my pediatrician about Wyatt losing language around the age of 2, his response, maybe he's a late talker, he's a boy. Let's wait and see. But what about the temper tantrums? What about the fact that he put his head through the kitchen window? What about the bite marks and scratches all over my arms and chest? He said he's probably just frustrated that he can't express himself. Let's wait and see. But autism doesn't afford us that luxury. Of course, I was relieved with my pediatrician's reassurances, but I should have gone with my gut, because if I had, I could have gotten a diagnosis 2 years earlier. and I lost 2 valuable years that could have been spent on early intervention. And finally, when Wyatt was diagnosed, he was misdiagnosed. But of course, part of that was my problem too. I lied in a lot of those parent questionnaires so things looked better. I can't turn back the hands of time, but I can recommend that you face this challenge head on. Denial prevents us from walking a path we eventually will have to walk anyway. The sooner you face the truth, the sooner you can help your child. Until next time, take care of yourself and keep the faith.
Parent to parent, one of the most frightening things there is when your child wanders away or elopes. This is when they leave an area without permission. And we know science has shown that over 50% of children on the autism spectrum will engage in this kind of behavior. But we don't have to just accept it as fact. There are things that we can do to teach our children how to appropriately ask when they want to go someplace. But before we can teach, we have to know why they're doing it. Are they wandering away to go to something, or are they wandering away to escape something? Really important that we know that. And once we do know that, then we can put in place these really effective teaching strategies. I want to remind you, though, that if your child is engaging in this kind of behavior, it's really important to work with an expert. Get professional help. They'll be able to effectively figure out why your child is doing it and put an intervention in place that's effective. And when you stop and think about it, there's nothing more important than keeping our children safe. You might be asking yourself, a BIP, what on earth is that?
What is autism? What is autism?
What is autism?
What is autism?
What is autism?
What is autism?
I've been asking myself that for a very, very long time.
Let me think about that one.
Trying to, just,
Jeez. Let me think. Oh man, that's a rough one. Yes.
Autism,
Autism is a neurological disorder that affects many of our kids in different ways.
It's a learning disability that affects the cognitive functions of the brain.
A lot of people have the misconception that it's a disability, and it's really not.
I look at it as like a special gift.
When one person thinks differently from another.
It's an opportunity for everyone to learn to understand someone that's a little different than them. Autism is the ability to educate.
They're given so much talent in different areas.
To me, autism means a chance to be with and be around people you really care about. Autism is beautiful.
It's a way of seeing the world differently.
It's always unique, totally intelligent, and sometimes mysterious.
happiness that comes out of my son's hard work.
It's a movement.
Unpredictable.
That's right.
Awesome. Love. The field I want to work in.
Laughter, fun, joy. Autism is beautiful to me.
I want you to remember these 3 words. There is hope.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We're very fortunate because we have guests in the studio and on Skype right now. In the studio, we have Valerie Baadh. I said it wrong before. And do you do Valerie Baadh Garrett or just Valerie Baadh?
I can go anyway.
Okay, all right. But it's Baadh, and so I wanted to make sure that we got that correct. And then on Skype, we have joining us Zach Task. What a great name that is, Zach. So Valerie is the Self-Leadership Program Manager at Meristem for the TAP program. TAP stands for Transformational Advocacy Project. And Zach, I understand that you are, look at you, how handsome you are in your suit and tie. I understand that you are a student at Meristem.
Yes, I am.
Wonderful. Well, welcome to both of you. Valerie, maybe let's start with Meristem. What is Meristem? And then we'll let Zach talk about his experience at Meristem. But what is Meristem?
Meristem is a transitional program for young adults on the spectrum or with other developmental delays, ages 18 to 28, as a transition from high school to greater independence and to employment. And many of our students also do college coursework in addition to the Meristem program.
So it's kind of like a stopgap for the cliff, because everybody talks about the cliff. You get to a certain age and then it's like, what's here?
Right.
Meristem is there.
Meristem is there. So it's a 3-year program Some go for 2 years and some go even 4 years. And our self-leadership program are students who have come back to deepen their work even longer.
Wow. And this is a live-in program or a place that you visit because you live locally?
Both. Both. About 3/4 of our students are in our independent living program that goes all the other hours of the day, and the rest are local residents and come for the day program.
So if you live in Kentucky and you're looking for a place to send your 20-year-old daughter who needs something transitionally, Meristem could be a solution for you.
Absolutely. We have students from all over the country.
Okay. So that's very, very exciting, and there's a wide variety of things that you guys cover at Meristem, but you believe in experiential work, is what I understand.
Absolutely. To help the young adult become at home with themselves, with the other person, and then be able to interact with the world while developing the skills to learn how to work.
Okay, absolutely sounds exciting. Zach, let's talk, because you're living it. You're a student at Meristem. How long have you been at Meristem?
So I've been at Meristem for just over 1.5 years now.
And do you like it?
Yeah, it's a great place. It gives you a lot of tools to succeed if that's what you want to do.
And so what are you focusing on there? What are you hoping to achieve before the time that you leave Meristem?
What I'm focusing on right now is mostly leadership and social skills. I'm focusing on planning more social outings with friends, going down to the aquatic center per se, as well as being able to help students on their own journey, leading them in a direction that they want to go.
Well, that sounds fabulous. I would follow you, Zach. If you said, let's do this, I'd be like all about that. I'm like, does he want to run for president?
Well, you might ask him that. Zach, why are you dressed so nicely this morning? You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So right after this, I'm actually going to head to my internship with Congresswoman Matsui.
I'm sorry, your internship with who?
Congresswoman Matsui.
Wow. I thought that's what you said, and I just wanted to make sure. So what are you doing with Congresswoman Matsui?
I'm just really helping out wherever they need it. It's just a normal internship, answering phones, writing, whatever needs to be written, really.
That's really exciting. And is that something that Meristem helped to hook you up with?
Oh, definitely. I actually got it. Well, I was first introduced to the Congresswoman when she came to Meristem, and I gave her a tour of the campus. And so that's how I initially got hooked up with them, yeah.
Now, did you say, are you looking for interns, or did she say, you are so fabulous, do you want to do an internship? Which way did that go?
I asked if she was looking for interns.
I love that. You advocated for yourself. That's wonderful. That's really amazing. So let's talk a little bit about backgrounds. How did you come to Meristem? Because this is not necessarily your background, Valerie.
Well, I'm a movement therapist specializing in sensory integration, previously with young children and even the elderly who experience sensory disintegration. And so I was invited to join Meristem, and as a movement teacher, most of the students know me first in my movement work, and then invited to help form the first leadership lab to continue deepening the movement work into the world. And Zach is one of our students who's been through that process.
And so for you, Zach, how did you find your way to Meristem?
It was really simple. My mom was looking for programs. I went to college, Sonoma State, for a year. I did okay, not great, and it wasn't really the best fit for me. And after that, my mom started looking for programs, and we found Meristem, and after that, here I am.
And what do you hope to go on to when you're done with your time at Meristem?
I want to get involved in the world of politics. I think it's a great tool to help people, and the law is really something that we can use to empower the people.
Well, you got that look about you, Zach. I got to say, honestly, I could see you running for something, and you're very well spoken too. So that's a wonderful thing. Now let's talk a little bit about the self-leadership program and so TAP stands for Transformational Advocacy Project. These are different things. They coexist. Help us out here.
So Zach, you were part of the process of coming up with that name TAP. You want to explain it a little bit about what it means?
Yeah, so one of the first things we did as a group was kind of brainstorm about what we want our name to be. And we decided we really wanted an acronym that sounded nice and really represented what we do. And we ended up with TAP. So transformational, we're trying to transform the world, in a sense, one step at a time. Right now, helping employers better understand how to employ those on the spectrum. So that's a transformation. And advocacy, because we really are advocating for those on the spectrum. We're advocating for their needs, and we're advocating for what would make them a good employee. And, well, it's a project, so the P just fit nicely.
It is a project, so that is a wonderful, wonderful name for it. And so I know we were talking before. We're both big fans of Joanne Lara, who's a regular on the show and a dear friend of mine. And I understand you guys did some work together. So how did this TAP program come about? And tell us a little bit about that.
Well, it arose out of some advocacy from a group of students and supporters at Meristem with the legislator of the state of California. They said, let's advocate, let's find a new way to change the landscape of the employment picture for those on the spectrum, which is fairly bleak. 60 to 90% unemployed or underemployed. And our program is a transition to work program, so if we can improve that landscape, let's do it. And so through the advocacy of our students, a bill was passed for a pilot project, and this is the manifestation of that project in Sacramento County and in Los Angeles County, and we're in the middle of it right now.
Wonderful, wonderful. And so what is that going to look like? What's the breakdown going to look like?
Well, what's going to end up is a new kind of training for employers, how to create a compassionate workplace, how to onboard new employees in a way that will lead to retention of those valuable employees. So it comes from both sides, from the employability of the young adults into the workplace, and that's where Meristem builds those skills of how to learn to work. And then in the workplace themselves, how to communicate, how to work through the issues, and how to look at it in a new way. And the new way is the voice of the young adults themselves advocating.
Absolutely, and I always love it when we work together. I know that our viewers love when they're, when people are working along. So that's why I brought up Joanne, because I know that she was very involved as you guys were coming up with your plan to do this. I think as a community, when we're all on the same page and sharing ideas and doing things, we get further, which is just a remarkable thing. So now this piece of training the employers. So you mentioned that it's in Sacramento and in Los Angeles. And so, Zach, is that a part, what role are you going to play in that new, because it's new, correct?
We're in the middle of the pilot project that will lead, hopefully, to all of California and even all of the U.S.
Wonderful. So what role are you going to play in that, Zach?
So right now it's very fluid. I'm really just helping out wherever I can, helping refine a survey here, helping work on certain wording in an email here. I'm really just doing whatever needs to be done.
Such a politician. It's very fluid right now, he says. You're getting some good training in being a politician, Zach. So
thank you. For
the folks who are watching at home and they're like, wow, this is really exciting, but realistically, how many students can you take at Meristem, and how many students are going to be involved in the TAP in the beginning, in the pilot, and as you start?
So at Meristem, we can take up to 100 students. We have between 40 and 60 now.
So you've got room.
Oh yeah, we have room, especially for day students. In the independent living, we can take 60. And in TAP, we started with 12 students, and in fact, we just finished a jobs program with a different group of 12 young adults, some from the community, and we placed them in jobs in our local community, collaborating with local employers for 3 weeks. And we studied every aspect of that, from the interview process to the evaluation process at the end. And the results are very interesting for us, and we can apply that to now the next phase, which is working directly with the employers to improve their experience with the young adult on the spectrum, and also how to create the conditions in the workplace that really support the value that these workers can bring, and the business bottom line of the worker, of the company. Not a charity model that's good for, it's good for social culture, but it's good for business.
Yeah.
These are valuable workers, and let's learn how to make a home for them in your company.
For employers who have found the way to make this work, what we hear so often is that these employees are of the highest caliber. They're the people who are on time, who are passionate, who are detail-oriented, that you can give a project to where somebody else may not be as interested in making sure that all the details are right, but a lot of times these individuals are like particularly good at that they're faster at it, and that they won't stop until they get something the way that it's supposed to be. But we hear too often of some little thing that goes wrong within the workplace that makes it impossible for that person to work there. And for the places that it is working, where some little adjustment has been made that makes everything possible. I think of Dr. Stephen Shore, who is a wonderful professor teaching music, but what he discovered was that he couldn't work in the classroom with the overhead fluorescent lights unless he was wearing a baseball cap. If he simply wore a baseball cap, it covered enough of the fluorescent lights so that he could focus and teach his classes, and he had to go to the university and say to them, do you have a problem if I wear a baseball hat? Because that really was at a time when that was considered to be too casual, and they said, if that's what you need, go for it. And he is a valued, highly sought professor, been teaching at the same university for decades. So those little tweaks, is that what you're going to help employers to understand and do?
Sure, that's the compassionate workplace. They need to wear the headphones. Do they need to have a quiet zone to take 5 minutes? Absolutely. We've also find that it's really important that it's a good match between the potential worker and the job that needs to be done. And what we're finding in the most successful programs is a fairly extended onboarding process to make sure that that it is a good match. And that's what we found even with our short 3-week project, that it was so successful, and we looked at that and went, wow, because you want some of the fails to learn from, we matched them really well. And the employers say, we want these folks back. Can we keep going with the project?
What kinds of employers and what kinds of jobs did you match up?
We had 6 different programs that we worked with. There was a restaurant, fairly 4-star restaurant.
And what was the position that the person was doing?
We had 3 workers there, back kitchen, prepping, dishwashing, and serving. We worked with the local parks department, setting up a weekly concert series starting at 8 in the morning, going till 10 at night, with a long break in between, putting up tents, working as a team, taking direction from their staff.
Awesome.
And then taking it all down in the evening. We had 2 different programs working with the elderly, one at a assisted living community called Eschaton, where they did activities and also went into memory care, which turned out to be a really good match for a number of our interns, and then with the community activities program, so separate supervisors, separate schedule. We also had a whole team working with a local moving company, and that was really interesting. It happened to be the busiest 2 weeks of that moving company's history, and they had dozens of jobs. And our guys came in and they said, we want them back.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And but we'd like to train them further. And how do we do that? Everyone wants to come back and say, can we do more of this?
Yeah.
We really like this. The Chamber of Commerce got involved. The Rotary Club got involved. And now at Meristem, we're about to start the first neurodiverse Rotarac club.
What is a Rotarac
It's
club?
the young adults program in Rotary.
Interesting.
The first neurodiverse program in the United States, or maybe the world.
That's very exciting. But I'm imagining it took a little bit of work ahead of time to identify these companies.
Right.
And what stumbling blocks did you find? What were because if you found 6 that you were working with, I'm guessing that there were a significant number who said,
Right.
I don't think we're ready for this.
Right. Yes, so all of that, yes. A few were personal connections or professional connections that I had, such as Eschaton. I came to them with a program and they said, sure, we'll go for that. Others were not so easy. And the Chamber of Commerce helped. And we had some friends in the Rotary Club that said, let's do this.
Yeah.
Let's link arms as a community and help out this program, and let's get involved with this experiment. And we paid for it. We provided job coaches, so there was always support.
For the employer, those interns were free to them, but the interns were being paid from the program.
Yep.
Okay, so best of all possible worlds, especially that moving company. I'm sure they were like, this is a boon for us.
Absolutely.
We've gotten free labor and we learned from it and got our jobs done. So now, Zach, were you one of the people in that program or were you not in that program?
No, I wasn't in that program. Right now I'm focusing on helping out in the cafe on campus here at Meristem and on the internship with Congresswoman Matsui.
Right.
But what Zach is doing that's part of the program, and another young woman also working in the cafe, they're both working as peer mentors, which is a paid position as part of TAP, and are debriefing with me regularly about how they are coaching their peers in the processes of the workplace. And this is one of our hypotheses, is that a peer coach is going to be more effective than a professional job coach.
Right.
And so we're studying it. So Zach is actually participating, but at a different level and through his love of work in the cafe.
That's fabulous. I want to come to the cafe now. I've already heard 2 good things about it. Zach works there, and you said that it's pretty fabulous.
Yeah.
Wonderful. I want to pivot back to Meristem now.
Sure.
To know, because all the time we have parents who are like, I just don't know where I can send my child. So let's talk a little bit about if a 19-year-old comes to Meristem. Are there like set times and classes that they're going to learn thing, or what does the day look like?
Zach, you want to address that?
Yeah, sure. So the day is a block schedule. Every day is 3-hour classes for 2-hour classes 3 times a day. And at the start of every day, we have a morning circle where we kind of get together and we go over what's going to happen today, any updates, land report. We also have an afternoon circle where we reflect on the day and appreciate those who did well and think what we can do better. And I think the afternoon circle has really been impactful and a great idea.
Wonderful. And so what kinds of classes are, and let's say if I'm asking anything too personal also, Zach, you don't have to answer anything, but I'm curious as to what kinds of classes you're taking and have taken there and what you like.
Yeah, so classes I've taken, that's the easiest one. There is a lot of classes, everything from woodworking, blacksmithing, coppersmithing, cafe, culinary arts, bakery, campus services, theater, improv. The list goes on. There's really a lot of classes, and it's a good encompassing, it encompasses a lot and a lot of different skills. And my favorite classes are by far blacksmithing and cafe and bakery.
Wonderful.
And Zach knows it just permeates everything so much that we almost forget to mention it. the role of movement in every single class.
Oh, yes.
And the role of this incredible landscape that the property's on, and the immersion in nature.
Yeah.
And nature forces, being with the sun, the water around us. We're in gold country, so the gold beneath our feet, which really helps the young person orient themselves to the place. And then, as Zach mentions, we have these opening and closing circles every day. So there's this built-in sense of community that really grows on you and deepens as you stay there.
And it's a working farm. So you've got animals there, and you're growing things as well?
Oh yeah, it's a seed to fork program.
What kinds of things are you growing? Doesn't this sound like a place we all want to retire to?
I can take this one.
Okay,
So
what are you growing?
there's a lot of, I don't know everything we're growing. I mostly work in the cafe, but the cafe harvested food from the farm every morning to use in the lunch for the day. So lately we've been harvesting these red noodle beans, romaine, lettuce. We've harvested lemons in the past for lemonade, zucchini squash, as well as the squash blossoms, and just a wide variety of other crops. How it works is if there's a crop that a student wants grown, they can talk to Jim, who is our land instructor, and normally it can be grown in the appropriate season. So our farm really just depends on what people want.
Wow. And is it organic, or we haven't worked to that yet?
Oh, it's beyond organic. It's biodynamic.
Stop! This is like,
it just gets better and better.
I want to go live at Meristem.
You can.
That's a very exciting thing. So I'm imagining, though, because the next question that people are going to ask, obviously there's a cost for students.
Sure.
And we don't necessarily need to get into all the whys and wherefores, but who usually pays? Is it private pay, or does insurance ever pay for a student, or is there any other funding source that pays for a student to come to Meristem?
Many students have funding through Regional Center.
The California Regional Center.
Right.
You're a vendor with the Regional Center.
Right, and private pay as well.
Okay.
So.
And who is this right for? Because is this only for individuals? We just did a piece on the term high functioning, and I hate that term. But is there a certain skill level that people have to be successful at Meristem?
That's a good question. A willingness to try.
Okay.
I'd say.
Yeah.
And Zach, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah. I think the most important thing coming to Meristem, or really any other program, is not just a willingness, but a drive to improve. And that's a drive that needs to come from within. I know for me, I didn't start to see any real improvements in my first 4 or 5 months. There was minor improvements, sure, but nothing major. But then we broke for summer, and I went back to my old lifestyle, playing games all day, eating junk food, the summer that you dream of as a kid. And I was bored. And I really, in that summer, it really improved my drive to change. That was what really made it for me. And after that, I really started to improve.
So that brings up another question. So you're kind of on a semester mode, and they can take the summer off and go home, kind of like a college situation. And you do have students who are going to Meristem and college concurrently.
Right.
They can go to the local community college.
Right, and we've just started our summer program this year, and now Meristem will be a 12-month program.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So this is the first year that you're doing that.
Right.
Okay. And again, if they want to live in this, and this is all up in Sacramento area, if they want to live in, you have room for 60. How many do you have currently right now?
Oh, well, the summer is a little bit different,
Yeah.
but there's spaces in the independent living quarters. Zach lives in one of the apartments. They're apartments of 4 or 5 bedrooms with common area, and independent living instructors that give classes on budgeting and shopping and cooking and cleaning and anything that is needed.
So would the goal be that when they are done, that they, or a significant number of them, would go and live independently after leaving Meristem?
Yes, or into a transition situation toward that. Yeah.
Really remarkable.
And Zach, you're in an independent dorm, aren't you? Pretty independent?
Yeah, I'm in a pretty independent dorm.
Yeah, so, not as much support needed. So,
Yeah, no.
there's a fading of that.
But this is not the place to send individuals who are still struggling with challenging behavior and self-regulation, probably.
Well, it depends. It really depends. A lot of that we can see during their visits. There's a progression of visits. Often they come with the family and do a tour with one of our wonderful admissions folks and spend some time. Then they might come back for a one-day visit just during the day program. And if that goes well and it feels like a good match, and often we'll have guests come and go, I am so coming here. I am here. I am down with it. I love this. And then they come for a 3-day visit, including 3 nights in the independent living quarters. And then we assess, say, is this going to be a good fit? Because it's different. It's quite different. If there's someone coming like Zach described, coming, and many do, from, gaming all the time and
yes.
Not being really engaged and being invited to do, pick up a pitchfork.
Right.
And we're going to go work in the field and it's hot.
Yeah.
You have to overcome some stuff to do that. And that's actually training for work skills, not that you're going to be a farmer, but you're going to know how to work. And
the work ethic.
And that's one of the things that was so impressive of our jobs project, that we heard from all the managers and executive directors. Every single one of these interns already knew not what the job was exactly, but they knew how to work and get a job done. And I think that comes from the program at Meristem.
Which is great. So if people have more questions about either the Meristem program or the TAP, because you could do TAP and not go to Meristem, is that correct?
In fact, yes, we have a few people doing that.
Okay. So if they want to know about either of them, where should they go?
So Meristem is easy to find, meristem.pro, our website. And Zach, how do they find out about TAP? How do they keep on tap with TAP?
Yeah, so for TAP, we have an Instagram account called TAP California.
Okay.
And we keep that up to date.
All right. The whole Instagram thing.
And Facebook.
Okay.
You can also find us on Facebook.
TAP California, TAP California. That's to find out. But you do not have to be a California resident to participate in these.
No, in fact, we have a program now that we'd like to reach out to the listeners. Zach, you were just working on this project the other day about the surveys.
Yeah, so right now we're working on a survey to send out for parents of those on the spectrum that will really give us a lot more data from a more neutral standpoint about what's going wrong, what needs improved, and how can we help.
And so you want everyone to do that, right? A large pool of people.
Right. So we have right now 3 surveys going on. One is for the young adults on the spectrum who have had some experience applying for a job, getting a job, maybe losing the job.
Yeah.
So that's one survey, and anyone in the United States can take that. And please, you can get the link to that on our Facebook page. Also, Zach just
That's
completed,
the TAP California page?
Right.
Okay.
Zach just completed the parents survey, and then there's an employer survey on how we can support their experiences with the workers on the spectrum.
Okay. Anything else that I have forgotten, because there's such a wealth here? Anything else that you want to say, Zach?
No, I think we covered most of it. Thank you for this amazing opportunity.
Thank you for being here, and you are such an inspiration. You're such a great role model, Zach. I can see why he would be somebody that you would have being a peer model for other people, because I'm sure that I love that your mother found this program, looked for it for you, and because I'm all about moms unite. But your mom must be very proud of you.
Yeah, both of them are.
Oh, that's a wonderful thing.
So we think of Meristem and the TAP project as really a process of transformation.
Yeah.
And we see that in Zach. We see that for all of us who get to work there, as we see the cycles of the seasons in the farm. And that is the change that needs to happen, within ourselves and then within our culture and in the policies of our government too.
Absolutely. Well,
So-
amen to that. So check them out, you guys. And if you're looking for that transition program, especially, for those of you, I'm excited about the fact that you're vendored by the Regional Center.
Sure.
And on Monday's show, we have folks from the Regional Center here to talk about the new program in California, the self-determination program, where you get to decide which programs you want to do, but they're already vendored. So that's a very exciting thing because that makes it affordable for a lot of families in California.
Okay.
That's very thrilling. Well, I thank you for coming and being with us. I'm going to have to schedule a trip to come and visit.
You do.
So that I can see where I'm retiring to. Because that sounds, but I want them to grow eggplant, Zach.
We've grown those in the past.
Yeah, that's you get some eggplants, some tomatoes, and zucchini, and then we can make ratatouille in the cafe. See how I'm already making a plan?
And basil.
Oh yes, some basil.
Oh, yeah.
A little basil with that, and then it's ratatouille time. I love ratatouille time. Anyway, I thank you guys. I digress. But I thank you guys for being here and taking the time to be with us. This has been super fun. Zach, you're amazing.
Thank you. And thank you for having me.
Thank you. All right, well, thank you so much. We're going to go to a break and come back just to close out the show. Stick with us.
Thanks, Shannon. There's two of our.
Hello, fellow activists. Last week, we talked about the first step to empowerment. Accept and embrace this challenge. Sometimes you have people that support you in your denial. Maybe it's your husband, maybe it's your mother. When I expressed my concern to my pediatrician about Wyatt losing language around the age of 2, his response, maybe he's a late talker, he's a boy. Let's wait and see. But what about the temper tantrums? What about the fact that he put his head through the kitchen window? What about the bite marks and scratches all over my arms and chest? He said he's probably just frustrated that he can't express himself. Let's wait and see. But autism doesn't afford us that luxury. Of course, I was relieved with my pediatrician's reassurances, but I should have gone with my gut, because if I had, I could have gotten a diagnosis 2 years earlier. And I lost 2 valuable years that could have been spent on early intervention. And finally, when Wyatt was diagnosed, he was misdiagnosed. But of course, part of that was my problem too. I lied in a lot of those parent questionnaires so things looked better. I can't turn back the hands of time, but I can recommend that you face this challenge head on. Denial prevents us from walking a path we eventually will have to walk anyway. The sooner you face the truth, the sooner you can help your child. Until next time, take care of yourself and keep the faith.
Welcome back. I had no idea that we had gone so far over, so thanks to you guys for tuning in for an extra long version of Autism Live. Make sure you're back tomorrow. We have got a great show. Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson is with me for Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. We are going to be talking about some new research about sleep and how important it is and the things that we can change to get better sleep for the individuals that we love on the spectrum, but also for ourselves. It's sort of for everyone. And then we also are going to have licensed marriage and family therapist Vince Redmond joining us to talk about the beginning transition to back to school time. Yes, it's time already. And then don't miss on Monday when we have folks from the Regional Center here talking with us about the new self-determination program in California. We're going to deconstruct it and figure out what it all means. We've been hearing about it, but it's now in practice. So stay tuned for those shows coming up. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me and one for you too. Bye-bye for now.